I saw a couple pictures.
Eddie.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome everybody to the May 12th, 2020 board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something real fast? Before we get started, I found out today that it is our chairman's birthday. And I'd like everybody to recognize Mr. Bill Chapman here for his birthday today. He's actually,
45.
45 years young. That's right. So y'all please get together and wish him a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Paul. Hey, you want to lead us in happy birthday?
I want to see an ID before I say 45.
It's protected. You can't have it. All right. Well, thank you all again for that. I appreciate it very much. We have, for the record, all commissioners present except Commissioner Nippers, who is out of state at this time. So with that being said, have I got any elected officials out there? Other than, I guess not, so very well. Jason, if you will, lead us in the invocation and then the pledge. Thank you.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for your loving kindness, your gentleness towards us, your goodness, your grace and mercy. Thank you for dying on the cross for us. We worship you today. We ask you to, we invite you into this place now. Let your spirit touch us. I pray you give wisdom to the commissioners. God, I pray you bless our county, our residents. Lord, every decision they make, let it be for the glory of God. Let it be in your perfect will. Let them make godly decisions, God, that will follow after your word and after the perfect will of God. We worship you and we give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a second?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
As we all know, we had a horrible fire in South Walton last week. It was right close to my neighborhood, so it really hit close to home. As a commissioner, I got to go in and where the command center was at Thompson Road. And I just want to say I was amazed. I wasn't surprised, but I was amazed at how well our fire departments, our state forest, our out-of-county fire departments, both South and North Walton fire departments were there. The Chief Crawford's in the back, and he's a very humble man, but I'm going to embarrass him anyway. He was a picture of calmness. He kept the commissioners informed. He kept the county administrator informed. Our sheriff's department people were there. They did a heck of a job. The thing that amazed me about all these professional people was how calm they were. Here I was, my heart was in my throat. I was so nervous I was shaking at times. And these guys were just a center of calmness. As the chief told me, he said that was just on the outside, but they are the ultimate professionals, and I applaud them for their work that night. As bad as this fire was, it could have been 100 times worse. My heart goes out to the people that lost their homes, and as a county, hopefully we can do things to help them. But I would just like to applaud our firefighters and our state forest and our sheriff's department.
Thank you, Tony. Same thoughts come from me. I did go down to the command center the morning of, after y'all basically got it halfway beat down, and I observed the same thing down there. And I appreciate the sheriff's office escorting me in through the area there so I could see the type of damage, and it was devastating, no doubt about it. Okay, with that said, Mr. Jones, additions and deletions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We do have some changes to the agenda. As you know, there was a lot going on last week and a lot of actions that we would recommend you move forward on today in response to that. First date will be update and request on the emergency declaration of the Mussett Bayou fire. This is a state of emergency that allows us to recoup costs associated with the activities of that evening. The second is a request to authorize a waiver of planning and application fee and permitting fees related to restoration, rebuilding, and temporary recreational vehicle use for fire-impacted parcel owners within the Mussett Bayou fire area to support restoration and rebuilding. That will be applicable to those folks that either lost their homes, lost partial homes, caused damage, but it's going to require some either a temporary dwelling on site, a la an RV, building permits and those type things and fees, or the planning fees that what the request will be is that we waive the fees that we're able to waive, and that we work very closely and diligently with these folks to move them forward in a timely manner so they can begin their healing and restoration process. Next is a request to consider a resolution prohibiting outdoor burning in Walton County. And then we'll have a discussion of the beach vendors and the current situation there. And then from those are the deletions and the additions. We have one deletion, and that's under citizens, item number 22. Tina, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name, wants to come to the next meeting as opposed to being here today and talking with Mac. They have a resolution to a problem that there won't be a need for her to come before the board. So whatever is available at that time. Right. So that's the changes we have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. The only other thing I know that we need to address today is the continuation of the local state of emergency, which would, wherever Sid is, there she is. You got it. I take it for signature when necessary. Okay. Very well then. All right. Well, call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda with additions or deletions. What says the board?
Motion to approve the.
Second.
Got a motion.
Hey, go ahead.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this time is public comment about any agenda item. Is anyone wishing to make a comment concerning an agenda item? Okay, I see two hands come up. When you come forward, identify yourself, spell your last name for the clerk, and then proceed. Yes, sir.
My name's Stephen Hill, Hill.
All right, Mr. Hill, what item are you talking about?
The beach vendors.
Beach vendors?
Yes, sir.
When we get to that section of it, for discussion here, that's when you can actually talk about it too. Okay. But it isn't necessary for do it now because we allow public comment on those particular items.
I just wanted to start out. My name's Stephen Hill. I own Holiday Isle Beach Service since 1989. I've been working in Destin on the beach since 1975. Basically, these are trying times for all of us. I think that we're all on the same team, and basically the beach service attendants, usually all of my guys are certified, and so by having us out on the beach, you're actually having free labor, and with the social distancing and everything, we can make sure that everybody stays socially distanced. And whenever you don't have anybody out there, you've got a couple of code enforcement guys trying to patrol 27 miles, and basically you've got somebody at every condo. Right now, some of the condos are allowed to set up umbrellas for their owners because they own the equipment. a bunch of our owners rent the equipment and we set it up for them, and some own their own equipment. And all I'm asking is that you let us go out there until the short-term rental ban is lifted, and at least be present and make sure that everybody stays safe. And as I said, I don't see why you wouldn't want another 100 free employees out there at every little section making sure things are run right. And I appreciate everything that you've done for us. Pretty much the virus is in a cool environment, from what I understand, lasts 12 to 18 hours on surfaces. If you get it out in a warmer, more humid environment, it lasts 3 to 4 hours. And if you put it in the direct sunlight, it lasts a minute and a half. As far as our chairs and stuff, we put them out there. You know, in other words, if we pick it up, if somebody was contagious and they were touching the chair, when we pick it up in the afternoon, basically it's going to go in the box and sit for 15 hours, and then we're going to put it out in the direct sunlight. And personally, I don't see how it's going to be contracted. I know there's a lot of other, I don't know about elevators. I mean, that's the, I don't see how you socially distance in an elevator. And I don't know who's going to wipe off the little keypads every single time somebody does it. But, you know, I think a lot of this is, you know, it should be left up to the individuals to make sure they take care of themselves, because if you're, you know, in other words, if you've got problems, then you definitely need to watch out. But personally, I'm a little bit older, but basically I feel like even if I got it, I know a few people that have gotten it and they were sick, but then they got better. And so I think that for the economy and for the, you know, just for the citizens of Walton County, it would be best if you let the vendors, you know, come out and start setting up again.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
All right. Gentleman in the blue shirt, do you want to talk about it at this time, or you want to wait till it's brought up further down the agenda?
I'll go ahead and speak now if that's it.
Okay. Go.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Eric Johnson. That's Johnsson. I'm the owner of Miramar Beach Service. So I'm a vendor, and I'm also a homeowner in Walton County. I grew up working on the local beaches. I first got lifeguard certified, junior lifeguard certified in 1994. I was working back on Black Sunday in 2003 when there were no county lifeguards at that time, or no South Walton Fire Department lifeguards, I'm sorry. Beach vendors pulled a lot of people out of the water on that day. And ever since, I've maintained that certification. Now I own my own beach service, and I pay all the kids that work for me, kind of like Mr. Hill said, to go get lifeguard certified. Even the junior kids, if they'll get junior certified, I pay for them to go get certified, and I give them a raise once they graduate. I know several other vendors that do the same, like Mr. Hill, but also several additional, dozens, if not hundreds, of certified lifeguards that are sitting on the sidelines right now, hoping to get back at work and make what we can of the season and protect our customers. Additionally, many of us are the first face a guest sees. We're the ambassadors for many properties. I know the county has that program, but on the private properties, we don't see those ambassadors. So that falls to us. We relay the property owner's rules to the public, inform them of general safety issues like rip currents and jellyfish, and we remove trash at the end of the day and fill in all holes. Basically, we do a lot more than just vend chairs on the private contracts. So in conclusion, I ask that you immediately reinstate the permits of the vendors that have contracts on private beaches. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is EALs for waste management. I have acknowledged my conflict of interest. I have filed a proper form with the clerk and will not vote in this matter.
Motion to approve the EALs.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. I said it anyway, didn't I? That don't count. All right, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, the first item we'd ask you to consider is a request for the emergency declaration on Mussett Bayou fire. That resolution is before you for your consideration. This is a request from emergency management that the board consider enacting an emergency declaration for this event. It will be backdated to 5 p.m. last Wednesday, May 6th. We would also ask for your permission to extend it tomorrow when it would expire based on these terms. That simply gives us access to state and federal funding sources and puts us in the proper position to recapture as much funding as we possibly can.
All right, this, see, this is a separate resolution other than our other local state of emergency. Okay, what says the board?
Motion to approve the resolution for a local state emergency.
Second.
A motion and second. Any public comment? Come on forward, Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ryan Crawford, Fire Chief, South Walton Fire District. I humbly stand before you. Just want to once again echo what Commissioner Anderson mentioned earlier. We were only successful with this event because of the collaboration between the Sheriff's Office, our fire rescue partners with Walton County Fire Rescue, Argyle, Liberty, our neighboring counties. This was a tremendously catastrophic fire for our community. This local state of emergency allows us to seek that federal and state funding for reimbursement through that fire management assistance grant. We today are still supporting our Florida forestry partners with our structural assets. We still have hot spots burning, and I would just urge you to approve this measure on the local state of emergency.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief?
Again, Chief, thank you.
Thank you
all,
again, Chief.
all of you
Thank
first
you, sir.
responders.
All right, any other public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, the next request is to authorize a waiver of planning, application, and permitting fees related to the restoration, rebuilding, and temporary recreational vehicle use for fire-impacted parcel owners within the Mussett Bayou fire area. This will be to support the restoration and the rebuilding and to provide what assistance that we can at this point. We will work very closely with these individuals to do as much of the prep work interior to the county as we can. I know we've already started with one individual that contacted us last week, and so we began moving forward with the process of assisting, but we've certainly not made any assurances or waiving fees. But we think that's a grand gesture on behalf of the board to show these folks that we do care and that we are willing to do what we can to help.
Okay, what says the board?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is a request to consider a resolution prohibiting outdoor burning in Walton County. Walt Bowers is here from Forestry. Do you have any questions of him? After the events of last week, and they weren't just in Walton County, you're aware of some large fires in Santa Rosa County. I believe there were some in Washington. But I'll tell you, the first thing I heard when I pulled up last week at the incident command for the fire in South Walton was forestry folks saying I believe they had 6 or 8 plows already on site, and they were bringing 10 more, and they're planning to deploy those. Just to know those resources were there, and that they had analyzed the situation, and it wasn't just a haphazard, let's go chase fire, but this is what we need to do. It was, as a couple of commissioners have spoke earlier, it was impressive to watch them work in a coordinated manner and know where what was going. So staff would recommend supporting this. I don't know if Mr. Bowers has any comments.
All right. Walt, do you want to make any comments?
Yes, Walter Bowers, B-O-W-E-R-S, Florida Forest Service, here the Walton County Supervisor. Just to come full circle on a few things that's been said this morning, it was a collaborative effort, and between our partners in the fire service, our partners in the county government, Public Works has been outstanding to support anything. I grew up in Walton County. This has been my home for almost 40 years. I know the people. If I don't know you, I've heard your name before. It was a pleasure to be a citizen of this county and see how the county government come together with all the emergency response agencies in this county. It was a pleasure to be a Forest Service employee for 20 years. Worked a lot of fires in my career, and the coordination and the cooperatorship in this county when this fire happened should be a model for folks to study from here on out. So I'm very, very thankful to everybody in this room and everyone in this county for supporting us.
Right.
As to the burn ban, I don't want to get in a situation to where we feel like it's a knee-jerk reaction for every fire we have in Walton County, but I will say this much. The situation has been building to a certain degree. We started off with some fires the week before the Mussett Bayou fire, and it seemed like the fires we were getting a little more hard, a little more aggravating to control, a little bit more potential to them, and you could just feel it building to a certain point that we never expected anything like we had with a red flag warning day, the day of the Mussett Bayou fire. Since then, at that point, we've done what we could on our side as far as shut down outdoor burning. We regulate land clearing and acreage burning. We shut down burning We shut down burning the day of the Mussett Bayou fire. We realized it was in a serious situation. We have continued to keep burning shut down in Chipola District, which is 7 counties, including Walton County. And the reason that I believe I would like for y'all to consider the burn ban would be the fact of the matter that my agency is getting ate up with illegal burns. People are hyped up. They're worried because of what's been going on with social media and the news. And it's getting to a point to where I cannot get my crews that need to be dedicated to a fire that I know needs work for having to respond to neighbors seeing other people burning, and rightfully so being concerned. I'm not taking away from that. If they see something, they by all means have the right to call, and we'll be glad to come out. But it's getting to a point, there's no moisture in the foreseeable future. I do not see anything improving. At this time, I do not see nothing improving, and I'd feel comfortable saying that within the next 5 to 7 days. However long the county would like to entertain the idea of the burn ban, that would be completely on y'all's discretion. I do not see nothing getting better in the next week, and I do know our call volumes going up, our dry levels going down. Years past, we've used the KBDI as far as a drought measure. Some of y'all have probably heard that before. Something's not reflecting what we're seeing with our fires compared to what our moisture index is. There's something different there. I believe a lot of it is attributed to us having a warm winter. Nothing really went dormant. It continued to grow. And so we're holding our own with our cooperators, and we're going to give Walton County a good product. But I do believe this is something that for the commission to consider. And if any of y'all have any questions for me pertaining to it, please ask me. I do know that we regulate outside burning when it comes to acreage and land clearing. Yard trash has to meet setbacks by forestry standards, but yard trash does not have to have a permit. We just enforce the standard setbacks for that. But usually the county burn bans incorporate recreation, cooking, and warming fires. That's the 3 that we do not regulate by statute. And then, of course, the yard trash would be eliminated if the county so wished to go into a burn ban.
Okay. Any questions for Walt?
Walt, again, thank you for your service, but should we just put this burn ban on an open end because, I walked out of the house this morning and north wind was still blowing. I don't want to necessarily put a date on it
right
without us having better conditions. So I will make a motion that we approve this burn ban and that we keep it in effect until we have discussions with the Forest Service and all the fire departments to when to lift it. It's a dangerous situation right now. And I like you. I went on the weather and looked 10 days out, and the changes don't look good.
Right, sir.
I think it'll be probably mid to late next week before we have wind changes and things like that. So, but wind change just means it blows from south to north instead of north to south unless we get more moisture.
Anyone who says anything about any weather past 10 days is really doing a very calculated gamble. There's not too many people alive that can tell you what's going to do in 10 plus days. I would say that would be a good idea, what you're considering. You don't want to make it as far as something that says, okay, we're going to do it for 30 days beginning today, and then in 14 days we receive a large significant amount of rainfall.
Well, part of our resolution answers y'all's question. It says it will remain in effect until deemed safe, in conjunction with talking with you and our fire partners in here. So
Well, that's my motion.
That's your motion. Okay.
I'll second that motion.
We got a second. Thank you, Walt. Appreciate it.
Hey, Walt, we appreciate in the midst of all that, other night, you taking care of Larry and Tony and I and giving us something to eat.
Yeah, we Sid, we got a free dinner out of it, and it was under $100. So
We appreciate you thinking about us.
we do. I was starving. I hadn't eaten all day.
Roger.
Me
We
either.
do what we can, and once again, the gentleman in the back there, I cannot. I mean, I'm very proud to be a citizen of this county and very proud to be involved in the organization I'm in with, and seeing how well things went. It's a tragic event. My heart goes out to those who lost, but I wish to God it never even had happened. But I will say this much: Walton County has done all it could to support the citizens of this county, and that's me coming from my angle as well. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Walt. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, number 4, add.
We're going to go back to the agenda.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And number 18 for a COVID-19 update. Just to bring the board up to speed on some things at staff level. We met with staff last week. We put a plan together that brings all the staff back into the work environment by the 26th, which is the day following Memorial Day. We've asked, we'll meet tomorrow to look at their planning to get things up and moving. For instance, Public Works are back to work. We'll have others that will incrementally move back in prior to the 26th, but the 26th is the day that we anticipate being fully staffed, recognizing that there are special conditions that some folks are dealing with. We've got HR folks working through those to be sure that we comply with all the rules and regulations in a literal sense. But some of the things we're looking at, just from a practical matter, what makes sense and what doesn't. We don't want to put anyone in harm's way, be that staff or citizens. So you may see things change a little bit from the normal procedures, but we're going to do everything within our power to get back up and running by the 26th. Miss Holly is here. She's been great in providing us daily information. I think while we have seen an uptick of cases in long care facilities, we have not seen any cases out of the general public since April 24th, I believe. So the cases that we have seen move forward, and I think there's probably 20 or 25 of those are contained. We know where they are. We know who they are. As testing expands, we'll probably find some cases here and there, but I think the board should be commended for the actions you have taken. Something is working. I don't know. I try to look at the statistics on a regular basis, but I've not seen any county that's moved as slowly as we have earlier on. And then while we've had a growth, we know where they are and we know where they're contained. But as far as the general public seeing no new cases for 3+ weeks indicates to me that something is working, and so we appreciate the leadership from the Department of Health and, more importantly, our local folks. So I'll yield to Ms. Holly and see what she may have to offer.
Okay. And if you can't hear me, let me know. I've got my mask on today. So can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me all right this morning? Okay, and if you cannot, just let me know and we'll do something different with this mask. I've learned how to live with it lately. So I wanted to talk just a little bit. I think there has been some questions about where you can actually go to find data. And so Jason is helping me this morning. Thank you, Jason, on the computer on the other side. So I think I'm sitting in Sid's position this morning. So thank you for letting me sit here also so I could actually see the screen as we move forward. So most of you can also see the screen. There's a couple of ways to get to this information. If you want to just go to floridahealth.gov, you can pull it up, but we had a hard time pulling it up this morning, so we're going in a different direction. If you actually go into floridahealth.gov, you'll see a red it's a red square at the very top. You click on that and it brings you to what we're fixing to look at or going to look at. So this is floridahealthcovid19.gov, and as you scroll down, you'll get to a part that actually tells you about the testing results and positives across the state. But as you get to the map, it has See Dashboard, and we're going to click on Walton once we click on this, and it gives us a lot of the information that tells us daily what is actually going on in our specific county. So if you look to the left of this, the total cases for the state is 41,923. And then the residents of this are 40,804. And then you'll see total hospitalizations, total deaths. But if we click on Walton, you're going to see our cases, total positive cases are 65, 54 residents, 0 are residents not in Florida, and then we've had 11 non-residents so far. Conditions in care, we've had 2 deaths in the last week, I believe. The weekend before this weekend is when our deaths started. We've had those, and then our age ranges are 20 to 94. The median age for positive is 59, and this gives you the example of information that deals with gender. 32, which is 59% are female, 22 male, 41%, and then we have 4 individuals that were black that had COVID, and then 50 white. And then you'll look at the ethnicity, and you'll see where we've had 1 Hispanic and 51 non-Hispanic that for our county.
Ms. Holly,
Yes.
Holly, question, going back up to the hospitalizations, how come they taken that number off there when they used to show it?
That, I don't know. I'll have to find out for you why they have done that.
'Cause
And
I
it could
checked
be at the very bottom. Let's go down to the very bottom, Jason. Go back and scroll down there. See if it has anything. No, it doesn't have anything. I thought sometimes there was an asterisk. There was an asterisk by that. So I don't know. That's new today. So I will check on that and let you know what I can find out about that. The very bottom, health metrics, if you'll click on that for me, this is real interesting too. You can actually look at the emergency, and ED stands for emergency department visits with influenza-like illness. So as you see, it's starting to go down. And then emergency department visits with COVID-like illness, you'll see where it's starting to go down. And then the documented new cases, you'll see there, and then percent positive for lab testing. So just kind of scroll over that point, and you'll see for May the 3rd of 2020, it's 3.53% for lab testing that we have. Now, this is an important part that we're looking at when we start looking at reopening more. Okay, so we've already reopened to a certain extent here in the county. But as we look at this, if we start seeing this spike increase over the next so many weeks or months, we know we've got an issue in our county. So right now we're at 3.53 So go ahead and let's go back to that. Thank you, Jason. Scroll down. So you'll see some other different things that you can look at. You can look at the long-term care facilities with positive COVID-19 cases. So let's click on that one. And for this county, you'll have to scroll all the way to the bottom because we're the W. And you will see there, for Walton, Chautauqua Rehab and Nursing Center has been the facility that has most of our positives right now. And sometimes, and I talked with the group about this, a lot of people are a little confused about why sometimes our numbers are a little different from what this is the AHCA report. So the Agency for Healthcare Administration, actually, the facility, through a system called ESS, they plug in their numbers every day. That information goes to this report that shows up. Sometimes there's lag time, and it doesn't match with what DOH puts out through the Merlin system for positives. So we may be a little off one or two. Also, we know these facilities, they hire individuals from another state because we're so close to Alabama. So when that happens, if that individual lives in Alabama, was tested in Alabama, they will show up on this site because they're an employee of some of these long-term care facilities. So you may be off, a person or two just because of that when you look at the dashboard that comes down from Department of Health. Okay, Jason, will you take us back? So you can scroll down to that, and then you can review the deaths associated with COVID-19, the one that's under that. For long-term care facilities, if you want to look at that, and then underneath is your corrections facilities. So I just kind of wanted to give an overview of that. Does anybody have questions specific to this for me?
Any questions from the board? We'll open it up for public comment in a minute.
Okay, and then I just wanted to mention we are starting our testing, our drive-through testing. Emergency management, Jeff and I have been working fairly hard on this, trying to get some different things to come through for us, and it has, and we're very appreciative for the resources that we've actually gotten. So I wanted to mention that with our partners, and our partners for this endeavor are our South Walton Fire District, City of Defuniak Springs, Matrix, Walton School District, Doc Smiley's Urgent Care, Point Washington Medical Clinic, and also Defuniak, the fire rescue for this end of the county. I hope I didn't leave anybody off of that. And then Walton Community Health Center, which is part of our Department of Health here in the county. So we're going to be doing some drive-through testing. This Thursday we start at Butler Elementary in Santa Rosa Beach. The testing will start at 9 and end at 12. And then Saturday from 9 to 12 it'll be in Freeport at the school district bus barn. And then next Tuesday, the 19th, we will be here in Defuniak at Gene Hurley Park from 9 to 12. And then at Mossy Head School on the 21st from 9 to 12. And then we don't have Paxton listed on this flyer, but we are going to be doing something in Paxton the last of the month. I'm still working that out. So we'll have everybody pretty much covered across the county. This will give us a better snapshot of what we've actually got in our county. We will be testing symptomatic or asymptomatic individuals. We're asking that nobody comes in a car with more than 5 people because we plan on getting these tests done just like this. The more, the better. So we've actually worked through a process that we hope to have everybody in and out in a very timely manner. So that's what we've got going over the next few weeks. And we're giving people individual information that when they register, it'll say your test results should be back, and we're hoping, because we're working with a lab we've never worked with before, so we're hoping that the test will come back within like 48, 72 hours, but we're telling everybody a week, just in case we don't want people to be worried about things, and the information they're actually getting, if they don't hear from us in a week, then there's a number for them to call, and we'll check on those results. So that's what we've got going, and I wanted to make sure everybody realized that there's a big push for increased testing in the state of Florida. It's called May Today, and that's the initiative. 2% of our county is our goal through this testing in May, and then in June we will still look at testing. We may do some target sites in the county in June just to see. And you know, as it gets warmer, where we're in PPE, it's going to be quite interesting to figure out how to do this in the heat. So that's why our hours are 9 to 12 just to protect people. They're actually helping us.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on a minute, we lost it. I don't know what that was, Jason. It came out of there.
So you lost them on there.
Yeah.
Take like a 5-minute break.
Come back to order, please. And go to a little recess to get us all hooked back up to the system here. All right, Holly, I think you had the floor. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yes, I need to correct myself. Walton County Fire and Rescue, not Defuniak. I don't know why I said that. That's helping us with our testing.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure I cleared that up.
All right. Anything else you want to add concerning your update?
No, just one of the things a little bit of a few things. As we reopen, we need to continue the social distancing, just the messaging to help us as we move forward. And that we are still looking at data. We are contact tracing every day. This thing is getting a little larger for us, so we're bringing on some additional staff to help with that.
Okay. Any questions? Tony?
Sorry. Holly, you know, you hear everything in this time. You hear rumors that may be true, rumors that probably aren't true. But I got a hypothetical question for you.
Okay.
I test positive for COVID-19. And on my way home from my...
Make sure you say that's hypothetical, right?
Right, I said hypothetical. I have not been tested positive. So, on my way home from my doctor's office, I'm in a bad car wreck and killed. Does that count as a COVID-19 death?
What normally happens from the ME standpoint, on that death certificate, you will have an MVA, motor vehicle accident, for your primary reason for death, but COVID will be noted on there.
Would it show up as in Walden County as a COVID death?
It would be on there. Now that's something I can research a little bit more, but we have been told for deaths that if you're COVID positive, that will be on your death certificate, and that would be added to the numbers for COVID.
Okay. All right, because that just seems a little to skew the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some, and we do know there's some different situations, and some of the numbers may be skewed a little bit because of some of the the reasoning like you're talking about.
Okay.
Of these people that are testing positive, of these cases, are they all still sick? Or do we know if they've healed?
That has been the $1 million question. I do know that Department of Health is working on a definition of recovery. In fact, on our health officer call yesterday, we asked them again when we would get that definition. CDC just gave that to them. So they are going to give us a definition for recovery, and when that happens, they're going to put that on the dashboard so people can see those that were recovered according to the CDC definition.
Good deal.
But some of those that show a positive are asymptomatic. That doesn't necessarily mean they even had the symptoms. They just had tested positive for it.
Exactly.
But, these numbers, like Tony said, for somebody that's in a car wreck that may have tested positive, but has died because of blunt force trauma, I can't see how that could be considered a cause of death or a COVID-19 death. It don't make sense other than somebody's trying to run the numbers up. But anyway, any other questions? All right, I don't see any up here on that, so we'll move forward to...
We got any phone calls?
Well,
do you need to vote on anything?
No, there's nothing to vote on, but we got some other things there to discuss.
On COVID?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, sir, but go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
What was today?
Never mind what the day is, just go.
He would have remembered it last week.
I don't remember what I ate last night for supper, so.
We want to talk about restaurants just a minute and make sure that we're all clear that the governor is the one through his executive orders that makes the determinations of what restaurants can and can't do. I believe the current regulations allow them to have 25% of their interior capacity seating and unlimited outside, but has to be 6 feet apart from tables and no parties greater than 10.
That's about right.
So while that is some relief, it's not a whole lot. I'm sure it's better than just takeout. But that's not a decision this board makes. That comes from the governor through his executive orders. And we don't know when he's subject to make changes there. Similar issue, or different issue, but similar controlling factor is the short-term rentals. The governor has placed them in phase 2 perhaps, phase 3 perhaps of his opening, has really not said. There are those that thought he had indicated that phase 2 would be when those short-term rentals would become available again and open for use, but instead we got hair. You can get your hair cut and you get your nails done, but you can't go rent a short-term rental. You can rent a hotel room, you can rent an inn, you can rent a 2 or 3 other motels, 2 or 3 other things there, but you can't rent a, quote, short-term rental. Again, that's a decision the governor's made. He seems to have squatted in that position, and we don't know when that's going to change. But just to be clear to the public and those listening, that is not this board's decision of when it will open. Now, if the board chooses, you can take some steps to make yourself known as what you'd like to see done, and there's means and methods to do that. And finally, our beach vendors. That's one thing you do have the authority to take action on if you so choose. We currently have a prohibition on vending on the beach and a suspension of all the license that have been issued to do that. So we lay that before you for your consideration. If you have any discussion on the restaurants, on the short-term rentals, or the beach vendors, and the beach vendor is something you could take action on if you so chose. The short-term rental and the restaurants would be in some form that you could take action of some sort to notify the governor of what our position is and how strongly we feel about what actions he has taken or may take or should take on behalf of Walton County and our economy.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Chairman.
For your discussion.
Mr. Chairman, can I get one quick question? Before we get started on discussion, could you explain that our representative, our lobbyist in Tallahassee has been making daily contact and that we've been on top of this?
Yeah, we speak to our lobbyist, Ms. Horton, usually multiple times a day. She has some very, very strong contacts in the governor's office. She's there pleading her case, trying to get us information, and quite frankly, it's got to the point where the information is a little spotty. And so we are grateful that she's there. She has a wealth of knowledge and a huge network that she uses to our advantage to gather the information we need. So yeah, it really doesn't matter. Anything we have a question about, she'll find an answer for it. So,
And she has been advocating at the governor's office.
Well, that was what I was going to allude to, is the fact that we have been having multiple discussions with her just about every day, if not every day, for the last several weeks. I think everybody is probably aware that there was about 17 of the Northwest Florida legislative folks out of the House that sent a letter to the governor asking them to consider opening up the short-term rentals. And I believe some of our adjoining counties along the Gulf have also sent resolutions over there in support of opening this back up. Walton County has not as of yet, but I would like the board to consider possibly doing that. I don't know if it'll do any good, but at least let the governor know our position over here as far as the short-term rentals. Again, we don't know if he's going to do it in phase 2, phase 3, or some future date. We have no idea yet. But anyway, that's up there for discussion from the board, is what you want to do on that. And then as far as the beach vendors, what you want to consider doing there as far as releasing or loosening some of the requirements presently in place.
Mr. Chairman, if we could, if it's okay with you, could we do the vendors first? We have a situation down on our beach where we have numerous people out of work. These vendors employ a lot of people. I had one vendor tell me totally he employs over 100 people. Now he's got several businesses, so that's what he was talking about. But I personally think, as the two gentlemen that spoke for the vendors, I think we need the vendors' help. I think we need to help them police the beach. And I would, if my motion would be to open it back up to the vendors, but because I think they can help us with social distancing. We can put some people back to work, but also, and I noticed I didn't hear either one of the gentlemen say, one thing I would add to this motion, that you have to sanitize your chairs. If I'm down in one of your chairs and I get up and somebody else is going to come down, you need to go down there and sanitize that chair before you allow it to be rented again. I know it's going to be a pain for y'all, but not as big a pain as this virus just spreading like crazy. I think it's time to put some of our vendors back to work. I think they have to follow the social distancing rule. I think they have to follow the 10 people rule. And I think that and I believe they will. I think 99.9% of our vendors are top notch. Is there going to be bad apples in there? Sure, there's bad apples everywhere. But I think it's time, let's get some help on the beach. The sheriff and code are overrun with the amount of people on the beach and amount of people that are not necessarily social distancing. If we do pass this, I would advise the vendors to take special care, because we're not fooling around about this. If it's not going to be done right, then we're going to have to vote to not do it at all. And but I know this, people are coming down here. I don't know if it's homeowners renting their house to people that we don't know about, but there's more traffic in South Walton right now than there's been all year. So they're coming. The beaches are starting to get a little full, and we've got to keep social distancing, and I think the vendors can help us in that. And I'll make a motion that we allow them back on the beach, as long as they follow the rules we set in place, the rules the governor has set in place, and that we do it very cautiously, and if it's not working, we'll withdraw it immediately.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second for discussion. My question will be to differentiate between public and private. Now, on the public accesses, where we have beach ambassadors and like, we can mandate that if you are Mr. Poundstone or somebody else is managing that access, that set doesn't go out there until Tony shows up, and then when Tony leaves, it comes off and it's disinfected before it's released again. Now, what do we do about the private beach owners who maybe it's a condo or whatever, and they contracted with a vendor, and they're putting them out like they normally do? But I think we can, with this motion, have them do the social distancing and what have you. But then they're down there all day. They're not being required to take it down and take it off whenever somebody gets done. Jay, I see you standing over there. You look like you cat on a hot tin roof wanting to jump in here, so jump in here then.
I'd actually like to just, before I address that, Commissioner, if I could, I just wanted to give an update on some economic numbers that I think are important to the conversation, to echo what Commissioner Anderson was saying about getting people back to work. We did an economic impact study, a second one. You may recall about a month ago I was before you, gave you some numbers, looked pretty bad at that point. Well, as you can imagine, it's gotten worse. So we did a study at the end of April. This report was put together May 1st. And so 42% of businesses say they can only last about another month or two without returning to some sort of normalcy. That's a pretty staggering number, 42%. And with the continued restrictions, that's just going to negatively impact our tourism industry and obviously our economy. 35% of firms have laid off employees. Of those firms that have laid off, they've laid off an average of 80% of their workforce. 57% of the firms have cut hours. Only 3% of tourism businesses in Walton County are operating at full capacity. 71% of tourism businesses have applied for financial stimulus. Only 30% have received it. 65% of businesses say the lack of customers would delay reopening. So, right now, Silver Sands is open, but only 15 retailers are operating in Silver Sands. So no one's going there. So anyway, I just thought I'd relay some of that information to the board as you discuss this. I think it's important that you have that information. We mentioned that we've been working through our lobbyists and getting information to the governor just so he's informed of how his decisions are impacting local communities. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that.
What was the total economic impact?
Oh, yeah, I have that. Thank you. Total economic impact. So if this continues through May, we're looking at $575 million in direct spending that'll be lost. And 10,000 jobs, and if this continues through the summer, we're looking at $1.9 billion in direct spending, 15,000 jobs. So the longer this continues, it just gets worse exponentially.
Okay. Very well. Appreciate the information. Now let's get back to public-private. I know what we can do because we control that. Private, who wants to address you or?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we would have the authority to put some of these rules in place, whether it's public or private property. However, I think the concern is probably going to be enforcement, which I think is what you were touching on. It's a lot easier on the public areas, especially the regional beach accesses where we have a vendor contract to implement these rules, because we can easily do that through our contractual relationship with Mr. Poundstone's organization. We could implement these rules on private property, but frankly, it would be nearly impossible for us to enforce it. I think the social distancing, that's enforceable, but as far as sanitizing the equipment, ensuring that occurs, it might be difficult for us to do. But we can still, through our marketing and our relationships with the vendors, encourage these activities. We could implement the rules if you want. I just want people to understand that there's an enforcement issue.
I understand the enforcement. It's always been since day one is the enforcement. But then again, those vendors out there, now there's a couple in the audience today, have an obligation. If you want to run your business correctly, you're going to take those extra measures. It's just like any of us. We'll make a personal decision whether we go to the beach or whether we go to Silver Sands or anywhere else. That's a individual's decision making. And I think the vendors, whether they're in a store or a restaurant, wherever they may be, have an obligation to do as much as they can to protect the people that are renting from them. So I know we're going to put that on, probably take that in there, but.
And if I understood Commissioner Anderson's motion correctly, his suggestion was that we open vending back up, but that vendors are required to place their setups a minimum of 6 feet apart and groups no larger than 10, and that they sanitize their equipment between use. If that's the motion, I think what I would suggest is that we put those regulations in our emergency declaration, and then, unless you decide otherwise, make no distinction between public or private.
Okay, one thing, Tony, considering your motion, each one of our public accesses has a certain part for vendors and a certain part for the general public. I do not, in my opinion, want these vendors to be setting up no further than where their boundary line is at the present time.
We changed that with the managed vendor program, so there is no vendor zone anymore. Now they set up, we set a max number of sets that can be set up, but they can set those chairs up anywhere because now they set them up as people come to the beach and they remove them as they leave. So there is no vendor zone anymore.
In the regional beach access.
Correct. For the regional beach access.
But the rest of them do.
We changed that with the managed vendor program.
The neighborhoods do.
Neighborhoods have still got the vendors. Okay. I just don't want the public to be pushed out because of the vendors that may be utilizing the beach.
And I think the vendors are aware that if the virus spreads exponentially, that we're going to shut it down again. And we're going to vote on shutting it down again. I can't speak for the other commissioners, but so I think that's a motivation to vendors to take care of business. And I think, like I say, I think 99.9% of them are great citizens, great human beings, and great businessmen.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, one thing you don't want your business to do is your customers getting sick. So it's very important that they understand, and I think they will, that sanitizing these units is a must.
Mr. Chairman.
And,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Tony, hang on a minute. You didn't have an effective date.
I think immediately.
The emergency declaration expires today. Those are where the regulations are currently contained, including the ban on beach vending. So I would recommend if, we could either stagger it or stage it, have an effective date in the future, or begin today.
My motion would be that it begin today.
Okay.
That's good with me. I couldn't understand, did you say that the rules would apply across the board or just to public?
That was my understanding of the motion, was that it would apply across the board.
Across the board.
And
because I don't think it's fair. I think it's inherently unfair to make the people on the public here, and then the other ones get to do what they want to. That ain't fair.
I mean everywhere, and follow the governor's orders. We have to follow that's a mandate from the governor. So.
And I think Commissioner Anderson touched on this, and I was trying to make the point as well that we need the buy-in from the vendors, especially on those private property.
And as far as enforcement, since we're including it in the emergency, local state of emergency, if you violate the rules, that's an arrestable offense.
Yes.
So if you get caught, it's on you.
Okay.
Just one quick thing. Jeff Goldberg kind of came up, and we were supposed to have a meeting last week with the vendors to talk about what a proper sanitation protocol would look like, and we were not able to have that meeting because Jeff's office got busy with the fire. It was actually the day of the fire. And so we'd still like to have that meeting to discuss those protocols and have kind of like a little industry standard. I will say that the vacation rentals are working on that. Over 100 vacation rental companies have gotten together and said, this is how we're going to clean our units. And they've all banded together and said, so there's consistency between all those vacation rental companies. And so I think something like that might be advised here for our beach vendors as well, is that we have a standard, a protocol of cleanliness.
Can you do it pretty quick?
I think so. Jeff, what?
Well, he's coming up here, Jay. You mentioned the short-term rental folks are putting it together. Have they decided on Dee Dee leaves Saturday morning and it can't be rented either 48 hours or 72 hours to allow good cleaning? Have they come up with some standard?
So there's a letter that was sent to the governor by over 100 rental firms, and they outlined some information. And in there, they talked about cleanliness, they talked about turnaround time, and they're accepting of the governor's 72 hours if that's need be. They're not happy about it, and they think they could do it with less, but they said that is something that if it gets them open and gets their businesses running again, that's something that they can live with. So, you know, vacation rental is a little different situation than, you know, a setup of chairs. I mean, you can disinfect some chairs pretty darn quickly out on the beach, and then as one of the beach vendors said, you know, you have the sun there as well, and so it's a little different situation than a vacation rental.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, do you want
Tony?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I also think that this should include bonfires.
We got a burn ban now.
We got a burn ban.
Well, that's true. Sorry about that. But surfboard rentals, kayak rentals, and photographers on the beach, as long as it's in groups under 10. We have to follow the state mandate, but we've got to get some people back to work. And the number Jay just said was staggering to me. I've read the report, and it's nothing but bad news. But we also have to follow the guidelines to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep our social distancing, keep our beach chairs sanitized, our kayaks and everything else sanitized. And, you know, let's not be the county that blows up because of this. I truly believe that if we follow the guidelines, follow the rules, and these guys out here, I know them, they're great people. They're going to follow the rules. All they've said is tell me what the rules are and we'll follow them. So I know we have to watch them closely. And as Commissioner Glidewell said, we're still in a state of emergency, so there's going to be consequences for not following the rules.
All right.
As far as putting it together can be done at relatively
short. Tell her who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jeff Goldberg, Emergency Management Director. Yeah, we could put that together in relatively short order within this week. Chris and Brian Kellenberger had already done a lot of legwork, and they were getting ready to pull the meeting together with a couple of the beach vendors to come up with the standards, and then we can go ahead and start the education process. So we can get that done, I assume, within this week.
Okay. Very well. Any other discussion from the board?
Yeah, I'm on the side with the beach vendors. I tell you, as a small business owner, I can relate to those guys. I mean, they're hanging on by the skin of their teeth right now, and it's time to get back to work. You know, by now we're, you know, I mean, these guys want to work. Let's let them work. Let's put them to work. So, I'm for them.
Okay. All right. With that being said, is there any public comment other than the guys that already talked earlier? Okay, I see you back there. Come on up here. Well, you got something else?
Just one thing, special event permits, like weddings, things like that, we're going to not do those right now, correct?
We're not going to do
Just wanted to double
that
check.
now.
Okay.
And so just to be clear, before we get this, so right now the discussion is just about the beach vendors. There are going to be possibly some other things we need to address as far as the COVID-19 emergency after the beach chair vendors, or are we?
That's the last I have.
Okay.
But if you have things.
We can handle it however you'd like. So what we need is a motion to extend the emergency declaration for another 7 days and give Commissioner Chapman the authority to renew that next Tuesday, assuming no change in circumstance. Currently, the emergency declaration has social distancing requirements at the beach. Vending is addressed, but that is covered by Commissioner Anderson's current motion. Special events are prohibited and bonfires are prohibited. So if you wanted to make any changes to those, we would need to. But otherwise, I guess what we would do is modify the motion maybe to extend the emergency declaration with the provision.
These exceptions.
Yeah, with the provision that beach vending would be allowed as long as there's social distancing of 6 feet or greater, no groups of 10 or more, and that equipment is sanitized between each use. That was it, right? For that one.
That's
Okay,
it.
and then also, as part of that motion, that we give Commissioner Chapman the authority to extend the emergency declaration next Tuesday, assuming no significant change in circumstances.
Will you modify?
I will modify it for that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, second, okay. All right, gentlemen, if you will, come forward, identify yourself to the clerk.
Good morning. My name is Alex Metz, M-E-T-Z. I am owner of Sunny Sands Beach Service. I'm also a resident at the end of Thompson Road, so I want to echo the Commission's praise of the fire department. You know, we were seconds away, and I want to say that I've never seen the community come together like they have post-fire. I went to the elementary school, and the elementary school is full of donations, and I want to thank the Commissioners opening us back up for echoing that sense of community. We closed almost 2 months ago. Upon closing, I paid all of my employees' rent for April and May because I knew it was going to be hard for them, and I have some to spare. That's the sense of community I'm asking for. Just a couple things. If you guys don't let us open, a lot of us will be in violation of our PPP loans. A lot of us are already, since the beach is open, we're in violation, a breach of our contracts with our condos. So I'm asking you not to open in a week, in 2 weeks. I'm asking you to open tomorrow morning. That gives us a day to talk to our buildings.
Well, I was saying that, and I think his motion was to include effective immediately, so.
Well, I'm asking you for tomorrow morning. That gives us just a little bit, not expecting us to get our chairs today.
Well, we know that. I mean, that's up to you when you want to do it.
You haven't been answering my phone calls to homeowners, so.
Well, you hadn't answered our phone calls.
I understand, sir. And in some of the things, the rabbit hole we've just gone down, listening to over some of the standards, we are open in Destin, and never have I ever got a call from a city employee thanking us. I have gotten a phone call from the city of Destin every day since May 1st thanking us as a vendor for our responsible actions, and that's all vendors across the board. There hasn't been one complaint. As far as sanitizing goes, the only thing I urge is have a little faith in us and personal responsibility without setting some guidelines that are so hard to adhere to and that nobody knows. We set up our chairs every morning. We have a spray pack with antiviral, and we walk down the line and we spray every chair. As far as getting more detailed than that, please don't put something on us that, just like the restaurants, just like some of the business, where we all of a sudden don't know.
Well, all we put in there was you disinfect it. Now, if you're going to make sure you use whatever disinfectant's going to do what it needs to do.
Well, the only thing I'm asking is that we don't get any more specific than that, because I believe we all have the best interests at heart.
I don't think that's our intent at this point in time. Now, if it starts getting out of hand and we start spiking, we may have to do something. So, but right now, it's pretty generic, disinfect it. You use whatever.
Well, I can tell you this. If people are catching coronavirus, it's not from beach chairs.
Oh,
it's from a lot of other things. So please don't blame us anymore.
We never blamed you to start with.
But unfortunately, we're the only business that the county kept closed.
That's a heck of a note, ain't it? Yes, sir. Come on.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Robert Morales. Morales is spelled M-I-R-A-L-L-E-S. I'm a disabled veteran from the United States Air Force from the Special Operations Career Path, and I'm also the owner of 38 Shade Beach Service. And I've been on and off the beaches since 2006. I've grown up here, but also with my background, it's helped me understand the utilization of unconventional assets. And I believe, as I echoed at the last meeting, that beach service, we really can help with the social distancing and the 6 feet apart. And as far as, so the majority of my business is actually on private property. And one benefit that we do have is that we don't necessarily have to rotate the equipment throughout the day. So that whatever guest rents that chair and umbrella, that's theirs for the day. And at the end of the day, that we disinfect right there at the boxes before putting them in. On the unemployment statistics, one of my degrees is actually in applied economics. And with Mr. Tusa's statistics there, I believe the 42% will be quite a bit higher because Walton County has a very unique economy here. The majority, we're now kind of in old school Walton County where the majority of your money is made in June and July. And so I don't know necessarily, like, because we may not get those short-term rentals that we're expecting, and that pickup won't necessarily happen as fast. You know, the majority of that money pays your bills through the winter and actually into the spring. And so projecting that far out is pretty difficult for a business, but I believe those unemployment statistics, if we do remain closed, fully closed or not opening as we are, I believe that that's going to be quite a bit higher for this area. I also employ quite a few young men, and I have been working diligently to keep checks and their rent paid as well, and that has put me in quite a bind. But you know, they've helped me get to where I am, so it's the least that I can do to help them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, any other public comment? I don't see anything here on the screen, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, just for a point of clarity, outdoor events, 5K races, those type things, are we still holding those back? Do you want to hear them?
That wasn't part of the emergency.
No, it was not.
It was not. That's correct.
So I think Tony kind of indicated all these other special event permits would still stay status
Yes.
quo.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And just for clarity, also, we need to make sure that the burn barrel vendors, who I've gotten several calls from, understand that they're not open, but the reason they're not open is because of the burn ban, not because of.
Right.
Okay. All right. With that being said, let's move on to number 19, Mr. Jones.
What, were we going to do a resolution on the short term?
Well, that's right. What's the board's position on a resolution to send to the governor in support of the short-term rentals?
Yeah, we need to send something to him. Voicing our opinion.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other comments from the board? Any public comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Again, just for clarity, you'd like staff to draft a letter to the governor stating that the board is encouraging him to open the short-term
That's
rentals and provide whatever documentation that might enhance that.
I would include all of Mr. Toose's statistics, which are eye-opening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll collaborate with them to get it drafted and get it for the chairman's signature.
You modify your motion?
I modify my motion.
Yes.
Second. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh.
Yes, I opened it. Didn't have any. Okay. Number 19, Mr. Jones.
Number 19 is a request from Public Works, specifically Melinda Gates, is a request to approve to advertise an RFQ for consulting services to complete the Old Town Santa Rosa Stormwater Master Plan and Phase 1 planning and design. This is a Pot 1 Restore Act funded project that's been approved by the board to move through the process. It has moved through, and it's time for us to issue an RFQ to select the most qualified candidate to begin working on that project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, OMB, next up is Sydney.
Commissioners, the only agenda item I have, and I'm sorry I don't have an agenda right in front of me, but it's a request to retain the Warner Law Firm to represent the county in Blackstone construction versus Walton County. That's fine. I think Tim has the case number on the agenda, right? So the county was served with a lawsuit, I want to say about a month ago, regarding it's challenging some of the building fees that have been collected over the years. Bay County was served with a very similar, almost identical lawsuit, and the Warners were retained by Bay County to represent them. So we're thinking it's a good idea if they represent both of us, we'll probably realize some economies of scale and be able to save some costs between the two counties.
Okay. It's the board's wishes.
Motion to approve. The hired.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Commissioner Glidewell, I think you have something.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We've heard a lot about vendors today, and while there's not a lot we can do for our small businesses, that is one area we do control, and they pay us fees every year to do business in Walton County. Since a lot of their season has been lost, and they're probably going to struggle through the remainder of the season, I think it would be a good gesture on the county's part to rebate half of the fees that we collect from vendors to the appropriate vendor, and at least help them out that much. So I would like to make a motion that we rebate 50% of the collected vendor fees back to the vendors, and as soon as possible.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
You have a second?
I'll second it. I've just got some questions on, and I guess Melissa's not here to answer this question for me, but how are we going to do it? How hard it's going to be, Jay? How are we going to decide? I mean, it's going to be half to all the vendors, half to, because some of the vendors still aren't working, the people that do strictly bonfire vendors, and I just don't want to get it too complicated.
Mm-hmm. So we have a list of all permitted beach vendors, and I don't know if there's a number on here. No, it's not numbered, but I'll just say, though, that it equates to about $90,000.
$90,000?
Yeah, so if we were going to rebate half, that would be about $45,000. Cindy, you have something?
Before we take formal action to issue any rebates, could we get direction for staff to work with Melissa to make sure that whatever rebate we impose is, implemented fairly across the board? We don't have any discrepancies or any. I don't want to get in a situation where we're. Mm-hmm. I guess. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole agenda items.
So, this is all beach vendors. It's not special events. Okay. So, but it's all beach vendors.
Yeah. The motion is beach, and it's it's fairly. It's $750 for one permit, $750 for the on-site, and then there's a smaller permit. I can't remember which one it was. Commissioner, but there's 3 permits. It's like $45,000. The TDC's.
Can we do it this way, Commissioner? And if you'll amend your motion, I'll amend the second. Can we get the information all together and vote on it at the next meeting? Just direct staff to have, and because I haven't had a chance to look at this, get with the board and explain each thing. I want to make sure we're doing this the right way, and by.
And I'm sorry,
I mean, would that work for you if we had a report and vote on it by next time?
Okay.
What's that?
I just wanted to make sure. So, if we have a proper accounting of it and Melissa's reviewed it, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of the presentation. That should be fine. However you guys want to handle it. I just want to make sure it's just for this year.
It's just for this year,
okay.
And it's
does it include all vendors? Okay. Wedding venues, everything.
So yeah, so they pay a fee as a vendor, but then they
Yeah.
also pay obviously all their fees
Well,
for those
and they
special
can't-
events. So
yeah.
it's not the special events, but it's the special event vendors.
Right.
Yeah. So if
Right.
they've paid a fee, then half of
Okay.
it would be refunded.
But,
And
so everybody would.
Everybody would get half of their money back.
Correct.
And since some of them probably need it, especially those burn
Yeah.
vendors who are struggling right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're doing it the right way.
I
And
would
everybody's
prefer to get the
covered.
money to them as fast as we
Okay,
can.
that's fine.
Okay. Did we settle on it?
We settled it.
We settle.
Okay. With all that discussion, I'm going to open it back up. Any other public comments? I see none.
So we're going to do it now.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Commissioner Nipper's absent. Commissioner Nick, anything?
No, sir, I'm good.
Commissioner Anderson?
No, I'm good. I along with everyone else is worried about the virus, but we also worried about our people too. So good luck to everybody, and hopefully we can all get back to some type of normal and before too long.
All right, number 22 has been deleted from the things, so we're at the any public comment. Any public comment? Anybody got any public comment? Seeing none, let's take about 10 minutes recess, and then we'll come back and do the planning. What?
With Jason, I think he's got some.
Do what?
Check with Jason.
Well, Celeste raised her hand, but she put it back down.
Well, if I don't see it, I can't do much about it.
Okay.
All right. We'll stand in recess for about 10. Order, please. Okay. Mac, I believe you're up, sir.
Chairman Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department. We have two items that are related to the development of the Northwest Florida Commerce Park at Woodlawn. Both of these are comprehensive plan amendments in support of that development. We'd like to request that both of these items be continued to the June 9th BCC meeting at 4 p.m. in this location to allow this to be heard after 4 p.m. Or after 5 p.m.
After 5. Okay, very well. All right.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. So if I ain't mistaken, that's...
Yes, sir. That's all we have today. Thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. If I'd have known that, Mac, we'd have done that.